But first, let's bring in the foreign editor at The Australian, Greg Sheridan, to look at what's happening overseas. There's a bit going on. Greg, welcome to the program. Let's start with the sanctions announced today by Penny Wong, imposed on 2 Israeli government ministers. The minister says there remains a great deal of alignment between the US and Australia, despite the Trump administration condemning the Australian government's decision here. The Prime Minister has been pretty defiant, saying Australia makes its own decisions. Have a listen.
Australia makes their own decisions based upon the assessments that we make.
We believe a two-state solution is the only way to end the cycle of violence. And, regrettably, it is also clear that the Netanyahu government rejects it.
Greg, are we out of step here?
Well, Peter, great to be with you. Look, I think it's a bit disturbing the way Albanese is now enjoying disagreeing with Trump for the sake of it. That's potentially a damaging dynamic in our Australian politics. Look, I think the 2 ministers they have sanctioned are reprehensible people. They are reprehensible people. They do enormous damage to Israel. Every Israeli I know is ashamed of these 2 ministers. But I do think these sanctions are ill-advised and they're petulant, foolish, empty, hollow grandstanding. I mean, these guys are reprehensible guys, but have we imposed Magnitsky-style sanctions on every single member of the Iranian government, which calls for the genocidal destruction of the State of Israel? Have we imposed Magnitsky-style sanctions on all the members of the Chinese government who are accused of genocide in amongst the Uyghurs and who run a much more repressive regime than anything Israel ever dreamed of? I think this is just, there are terrible loss of life going on in Sudan and in many parts of the world. This has got nothing to do with conscience. It's got nothing to do with good policy. I just think it's, petulant, hollow grandstanding on the government's part. It's posturing. It's not designed to have any useful function at all.
So let me pick up something you referenced there about the relationship between the 2 men, because they haven't had a formal meeting, as we know. We've got this issue, we've got the tariff issue, we've obviously got this brouhaha about defence funding. Our Prime Minister will be at the G7 in Canada next week, so obviously will be Donald Trump. What surprises me, we are one of the last serious countries to have a sit-down with the new president. They're hoping for a pull-aside, which you and I know, but viewers at home may not know, is just an informal grab between the 2 people walking down a corridor at the margins of another group meeting. Now, have we asked for a formal meeting? Has it been rejected? Because I would be very surprised. The government in Australia should be seeking a formal sit-down meeting, given we haven't had one. And the fact that we're not having one, that we're talking about a pull-aside, says to me the relationship's not in good shape.
Yeah, I think that's a fair inference, Peter. But I would share the blame equally here between Albanese and Trump. Trump makes it very difficult for people now to want to go to Washington. Albanese said before the last election that he would make it a high priority to go to Washington soon, but then Trump subjected a number of his visitors to kind of humiliating and bizarre performances in the White House in public. You never used to have to go through this gauntlet. John Howard didn't have to do this with Bill Clinton or anything like that. And so people are now reluctant. They're high risk and high reward, these meetings with Trump. And if you're very powerful, Trump will pay you some deference, like the President of France or the Prime Minister of Britain. But we are not powerful enough to take any of that deference for granted. And if anyone asked Trump, is Australia spending enough on defence, he'd say no. So it's sort of cowardly of Albanese not to go to Washington and, make a bigger deal of our agenda across the administration and across the Congress.
Or even just do it in Canada.
On the other hand, Trump...
Even just do it in Canada.
Yeah, or...
Even just do it in Canada.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Try to have a proper formal meeting in Canada. But if he went to Washington, he'd do a lot more than just seeing Trump. But he should have a formal meeting. He's obviously scared of a formal meeting. I don't think this is quite satisfactory from the Prime Minister, because you can't just curl up into the fetal position and hope the American president doesn't notice you for 3 years. I honestly think the trade stuff is not worth 2 bob. I wouldn't expend any energy on trying to get these tariffs lifted. I think Rudd is doing a very good job there, and if he can get some sort of deal with the administration, well and good. But it would be better if Albanese had a relationship with Trump, but I can understand why he is so cautious.
Let's go to what's happening in Los Angeles. It's now spread to other areas. We know there are protests in New York and Chicago. The Marines now, not just the National Guard, are on the ground in Los Angeles. Newsom says Trump isn't opposed to lawlessness and violence as long as it serves him. We expect, and that's certainly the rumour, that Newsom may run as a Democrat, certainly at the next presidential election. Have a listen to his comments.
Authoritarian regimes begin by targeting people who are least able to defend themselves, but they do not stop there.
All right, how's this going to play out?
Well, I think it suits both Trump and Newsom, really. In American politics, you win by energising your base, and it energises the base of both Donald Trump and Gavin Newsom. I think they've both behaved pretty poorly. Trump is right to try to deport illegal immigrants. He said he was going to do that. He never deported as many as Barack Obama. In the year 2010, Obama deported 400,000 illegal immigrants, majority of whom were not criminals. They didn't have any extra criminal records. Newsom says it's shocking that Trump is not only deporting criminals, but he's deporting seamstresses and mechanics and so on. But the thing is, if you are in America illegally, you are subject to deportation. And the Americans have gone through having amnesty after amnesty after amnesty, saying, all right, we'll accept everyone who's here already, but anyone who arrives from tomorrow onwards illegally will get deported. And then the courts and the sanctuary cities and the uncooperative democratic city and state administrations make it impossible to deport people. This is a big crisis right throughout Western politics. Trump, I think, is perfectly legitimate and perfectly right to try to deport people. I don't know what the point of deploying 300 Marines was, and all the violence that we're seeing on the streets of America in the last couple of days is not between Trump's National Guardsmen and demonstrators, it's between city police forces trying to protect their neighbourhoods and trying to prevent crime. It's the city police force of Los Angeles, subject to the authority of the mayor, which is policing these downtown demonstrations. The same in Chicago, the same in New York. But I think both sides of politics are behaving pretty despicably, and both sides of politics have so demonised each other that they get their supporters to think not that they're merely having a disagreement, but that they are locked in a mortal struggle between good and evil. And it's dangerous and destructive, but I mean, America has seen a lot worse and got through a lot worse. I just don't know that either Trump or Newsom will have an incentive genuinely to calm things down. Trump by saying, well, look, let's just go easy for a week or two, or Newsom by saying, we stand 100% in favour of law enforcement and against violent demonstrations, and we will enforce, you know, all the laws that are legitimate laws of this country.
Yeah, I feel like we watched this movie before with Black Lives Matter, you know, one rule for the left and another rule for people, lawful people on the right. And I do think governments have got to maintain their borders, because if you don't maintain your borders, you are not sovereign. And if you're not sovereign, you're not a country. We'll leave it there, Greg. We'll catch up again next week.